Okay, so I'm Stephen Britton. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships and Enterprise Innovation at Shutterstock. It's a bit of an odd job title. I didn't necessarily come up with that, but basically what it means is I head up the technical division of Shutterstock, the commercial arm, Shutterstock AI, which is actually now releasing and selling AI products and services. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about that shortly. So, I've spent the last sort of 15 years in artificial intelligence. I've been very lucky to work in some really leading AI companies that have all now been acquired. And I've always found myself working with AI tech in marketing. And I've always found marketing is a really great place because retail is often where a lot of our ideas that we have find commercial traction. Because actually that pursuit of profit is the second fastest driver of innovation in the tech world after war, basically. So marketing's a great place. Retail in particular is sort of the sweet spot of that. And if we look back at the amount of performance that's changed over marketing, if we look back at the changes that have happened in technology, they've been societal changes. If you think back, Mesopotamia, 8000 BC, the world's first marketplace when people got together and started selling sheep. The first marketing there was probably just someone standing on a rock shouting about their sheep. Fast forward 3,000 years, the introduction of currency. Then you start coming to modern technology, modern history, credit cards in the 80s, shopping malls, social media, e-commerce, all of these things driven ultimately by retail, because ultimately they are there to make people buy a product. Henry Ford said, nothing happens until someone sells something, and that's so true in retail. And that's why it's such a great place to really test technology, because technology can't exist in a vacuum. We have to have technology that can deliver ROI, particularly in retail. And we need it now particularly because there's some real challenges, both on the high street and off the high street. So we all did pretty well, those of us in tech in 2020, as the world rushed to sell online. Shopify grew by 87% in 1 year. But the tide's starting to go back out again now. We've got challenges. We've got challenges both physical and virtual. So the physical world, we've got raging inflation, we've got staffing problems, we've got supply chain problems, and of course we've got consumer confidence problems. Online, we've got all of those problems, but we've also got things like iOS 14, the demand for consumer privacy. All of these things mean that we can't just rely on retargeting algorithms to chase people around the internet with a boring pop-up ad just because they've been to see our website once. We have to start thinking about ways that we can use technology to be innovative, to build a connection with our customers, but ultimately it has to deliver ROI. We can't just have tech for the sake of tech, particularly in AI. We've all seen it. There's a real cynicism about AI. It has to deliver. So, the reason I wanted to ask if Sean was still here is because obviously we've just seen a fantastic presentation on this. And I'm really excited by this because it's a real step forward in a number of different areas. Amazon obviously need to respond to increasing competition online. Their big space used to obviously be scale, but scale has become commoditized now, so you can't just rely on that. So you need to find innovative new ways to communicate, innovative new ways to sell. Amazon, obviously, as we've just seen with Amazon Go and Amazon Fresh, depending on which side of the world you're on, some fantastic use of technology, really trying to capture that sort of walking home from work market where people are able to just go in spontaneously, buy a bag of salad, buy some cat food, and go home for the evening. Obviously, the recent purchase of Whole Foods covers that big shop, so you've got the big shop and the spontaneous shop both covered. And all of this, as we just saw, powered by computer vision. So computer vision sensors, object detection, people detection, and, I'm delighted to say, all of this powered by Shutterstock content and Shutterstock data, which is why we're so heavily involved in this space. So this is a fantastic use of computer vision in the real world. There's a lot more. So IKEA, working now very seamlessly to build out environments on their website where you can upload a picture of your own home, then you can drag in their furniture to see how it looks in your house. Again, all computer vision, all based on computer vision training sets and training data. It's done really well, this. Actually, what it's done is it's made people stay on the site more. It's helped engagement. But what it's also done, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, but unexpectedly, it's reduced their number of returns. So people are actually going on, it's gamified, they're buying things, and they know what it looks like and keeping it. Lowe's did something recently where they're sort of bringing in augmented reality into the shopping experience, where actually now you can scan an item in your home, and the app will actually find that particular product line in the catalogue. So if you're looking for particular items, you haven't got to scan through, you haven't got to search, take a picture, that will take it to the website, and then you'll be able to see all those products there. Again, all built using computer vision and training data. And technology that I'm particularly excited about, predictive technology, and I'm going to touch on this in a little bit more. We've got some really interesting brands. Carrefour and Skechers really leading this, a number of others that were under NDA, so we can't really talk too much about, using technology to now make decisions in advance around how to use creative. So knowing in advance whether a particular piece of creative will work for a particular audience, a particular goal, a particular demographic, all of that in advance, and I'm going to touch on that in a bit more detail. But before that, I'm just going to pause for a second, because you might actually be surprised to know that Shutterstock are even in this space, and wondering, why am I here talking about Shutterstock AI? But computer vision has underpinned most of the technology that runs the Shutterstock environment. So we have been building out proprietary tools with computer vision for years. We've got a huge data science team in Dublin, we've got a big data science team in New York, and another one in London. And if you think around how you use our content and how you use our product, it's a marketplace. So we've got millions of contributors all around the world uploading content in real time onto our servers. That needs to be checked for accuracy. The labels need to be checked for descriptions. We need to be able to understand what's in those. And we need to be able to offer tools that allow our customers to be able to find that content. So we have built out our own reverse image search tool. We've got some proprietary computer vision tool sets that allow us to analyze all of our images at multiple layers, run those convolutional processes really, really quickly, and analyze our entire library, and then be able to bring up images that look the same. Now, you might think reverse image search is not really a big deal, but we get hundreds of thousands of images every day that have to be analyzed for accuracy. And there are something like 500 million images on the Shutterstock library. So if you were to spend 1 second looking at every single image on the Shutterstock library, it would take you 12.5 years. So I did the maths on this. If you did it during your working hours, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, it would take you 37 years to look through the Shutterstock library. So it's literally a lifetime's work just to look through those images. So clearly we had to build a tool, and only AI and computer vision could do that, where it could analyze all of those hundreds of millions of images and then find an image that matches your search and looks at not just labels, but actually the image itself and what's in that image to find other images that are like it. Now, I touched on the fact that I'm talking about Shutterstock AI as a commercial team. We are now selling a lot of this technology, which is what we're going to be talking about a lot more today. And not only are we talking about content, because content itself obviously is data, we've got a huge library with human-tested labels, and we are also able to offer up services around labeling, annotations, and descriptions. So we've built out a tool that can actually analyze an image and write contextual and semantic labels. So not just sticking in there boat, car, tree, object detection, but actually say this is a picture of a happy family sitting on a beach, the dad's eating an ice cream, and the mum's looking at an iPhone. And that can all be written with AI. So what that means is if you're sitting on a bank of images that you're not using particularly well, particularly if you're FMCG or retail, I'm working with a big retailer at the moment that say, well, we've got 100,000 images in our content management system, but we don't know how many of those have got a picture of a particular shampoo bottle in. We don't know if we've got 99,000 bottles of shampoo and only 10,000 pictures of conditioner. So at the moment, what they're doing is hiring interns to literally look through those thousands of images and then write descriptive labels. We can do that at the touch of a button. So you can upload 100,000 images into an S3 bucket. We will add the AI algorithms in there. We would then annotate. We would then put bounding boxes on, labels, descriptions, semantic labels, and if you want it, information around how that piece of content would perform in different markets around the world. And computer vision obviously is a very natural place for Shutterstock to live. Over the last 15 years, we've built the world's largest content library. But because of the way we work with contributors all around the world, we're constantly getting images and content from every corner of the globe. So that helps with that diversity element that you need in your computer vision training models. And not only have we got the most accurate labels in the world and the most diverse data set in the world, but we've also got the biggest data set in the world. And all of these labels are checked both by computer vision and by humans. So fast forward 15 years, and Shutterstock is sitting on the world's largest, most diverse, most accurate computer vision training data set on the planet. So in there, we've got sets that are pre-built for particular use cases. So content moderation, for example. We've got a content moderation set that's tested, that's been used, that you can just apply to your model straight away. Or if you've got something slightly more specific and you need levels of specificity that perhaps are not necessarily out there in the open source content, or of course you want to use content legally to build your commercial application rather than just scraping the internet, we can go out and create those sets for you, Or we can actually enlist our entire army of contributors to go out and take those pictures for you. So we're working right now with somebody that wants 500,000 images of street signs in South Korea. Nowhere else in the world has got that. We can get that in 10 days by putting out a note to our hundreds of thousands of contributors. So if you are looking for computer vision training sets, if you're looking for computer vision training models, we've got content in a number of different ways. You can have the content, you can have the data, and what we're also doing is building out the models as well. So we are offering up models as a service. So if you don't necessarily want the content, you just want the models, we can help with that too. Right, that's the sales pitch bit done. We are outside, there is a booth out there, come and talk to us. And we can tell you a bit more detail about all that. But what I was going to talk to you about now is, this has stopped working. Oh, there we go, oh, that's going the wrong way. Predictive performance. So I touched on this earlier. This is a particular piece of technology that I'm particularly excited about. As you heard earlier, I've been involved in a number of AI startups that have all gone on and been acquired, and they've all been around predictive technology. And that's largely because I still think it's crazy that we're making such important decisions around creative by guessing what works and seeing if we can think in advance of what works. But we need technology to do that because there is a massive problem in the world, particularly in the advertising world. There is a $500 billion problem that no one is talking about. $560 billion were advertised spend in 2020. I've looked at this number, it's gone up more like 720 million. It's expected to get close, a billion, sorry, it's expected to get close to $1 trillion in a year or two's time. But I'm going to ask you a real quick question. $560 billion spent on advertising. Hands up, who can remember the last TV ad they saw? Right? Can you remember the last billboard ad you saw? What was the last pop-up on your phone? Last banner ad? None of us in this room can remember a single ad we've seen in the last 12 hours, yet $560 billion a year and an entire industry is spent particularly for that very reason. And no one's talking about this. And the reason they're not talking about it is because it's a really hard problem. And it's getting worse. Because content is more in demand now than ever. Half of all media spend is on digital. That's expected to tip over the scales later this year. We've seen a huge explosion of websites, 1.8 billion, up from 206 million just 10, 15 years ago. And the way we use that content is totally different too. So 3 hours a day on a mobile phone. If you're under the age of 45, you now spend more time on your phone than you do watching TV. So imagine telling that to some madman ad exec in the 80s. It's completely seismic. It's completely changed the world we live in. And not only is it more expensive, more competitive, there's more of it than ever. So we're exposed now to more ads than at any point in human history. The average person sees 15,000 ads a day. In Europe, I think it's about 12,000. In America, it's like 18,000 ads a day across multiple channels. But again, 18,000 ads are being fired at us, and none of us in this room can remember what. Crazy. And that might be why our attention spans have dropped as well, because Google say it takes 50 milliseconds to decide if you like an image on an ad. Facebook say if someone likes an image on an ad, they'll dwell on that image for 1.7 seconds. Facebook also say they've got 9 million advertisers active at any one time. So if you put these numbers together, it's pretty scary. Because what it means is you've got 50 milliseconds to get 1.7 seconds attention from someone who's seen 15,000 ads from 9 million companies on Facebook alone. And it's your creative that's got to do that. 56% of the ad is driven from the image that you choose. So all the work that's done with segmentation, looking at pricing, looking at audience personalization, all of that together is still less than just the image that you choose on the ad. Ipsos say it's 90% of the ad. So with all this pressure on creative, it seems crazy to me that we're making decisions around this the same way we did in the 50s. Guesswork, human bias. I've been in meetings with some of the world's biggest brands where they're deciding on what they're going to do with their content. One particular big brand that uses a catalogue that goes out millions of homes all around America and Europe. In the boardroom, they had 2 pictures up on the wall of their potential catalogue cover. We had post-it notes, and all of us in the room went and put a post-it note on the image that we liked the best. That went on 25 million catalogues all around the world, and that was the science, a post-it note. That to me just doesn't make sense. One of the companies that I was early stage was Phrasee, and AI for subject lines. I see some of you nodding. You know Phrasee? So yeah, AI subject lines. People laughed at me when I started that, said it's irrelevant, we don't need it. People are happy to write subject lines. Now most big brands use AI subject lines and go, well, it's crazy. Why would you write that? It's the same thing here. In 5, 10 years' time, we'll look back and say, it's nuts that we used to guess which image to put on our $1 million Facebook ad or our billboard ad, if they're still around. But when you think about that, it's nuts. We're going to spend $2 million on a campaign for advertising, and we're just going to guess which picture to use. And someone in your marketing department has to make a decision that could cost or make your company millions. So that's where predictive intelligence comes in. Being able to analyze content and know whether it's going to work for particular goals, particular territories, particular demographics, particular industries. So I'm just going to do a little quiz here. One of the crueler members of my team said I needed to change this picture because it was boring. But there's a reason I've picked these two images to be the same. It's because I'm trying to make a point that so much of our decision making is guesswork. There's two images up there that look pretty similar. There's some basic changes. Let's assume now that you are working in that catalogue company I mentioned, or you are working in a big retail company, you need to pick an image. Hands up for your Christmas bonus. Who's going to pick image number 1? Okay. And for your Christmas bonus, who's going to pick image number 2? Interestingly, more people. Right, just random. Who said number 1? Why?
I think first, I like the comic much better. It's more lively, and also I don't like the books above the cabinet or whatever.
You don't like the books?
I don't like books.
Dust trap. Yeah, I agree.
Also, I don't like the fruit basket.
Okay.
I think sometimes less is more, and the first one is more elegant.
Very good. I agree, personally. And what about people for number 2? What's the counter argument? Anyone say that? Yes. What did you like?
We apparently disagree over interior design taste. I like the books.
Okay.
And something to read. And presumably, I would eat.
There we go. So, perfect proof, really, that it's just about opinions, right? Because to the naked eye, they look pretty similar. Your arguments are very valid, as are yours. But that means that actually, when it comes to spending millions of dollars, that's not really scientific, right? Your opinion versus my opinion. We need data to make the decision. In actual fact, it was number 1 that performed better than number 2, by a considerable margin as well, 300% better. Now, the interesting point about all of this, of course, is with this technology, we knew in advance that image would perform better for our chosen goals. And that's a game changer. Because for the most part, if people are testing content, if they're putting ads on Facebook, they're probably using Facebook's dynamic optimization tool. All that effectively does is reduce the lowest performing ad over time. And what that really means is you only know something doesn't work after it hasn't worked, which is too late. It's nuts. Why would we do that? And if you're doing multivariate testing where you're putting various different bits of content out there to see what works, all you're really doing is working out what's the least worst of your random piece of content that you put in market. There's still no data. So I'm here to say that this must change. Data is going to be how you make decisions about creative going forward. So how do we know this? How do you turn an image into data? How do you look at something as subjective as human creativity and be able to machine it? Well, there are 2 parts to it. So I'm going to run that through with you now. The first part is obviously using computer vision. We break down this image and turn it into data. So we run a number of processes. The first thing we do is look at object detection. We look at everything that's in that image that the human can see. Chandelier, window, dog, plant, rug, etc., etc. All of this, of course, done with computer vision, all of this done in real time, no human interaction needed. And we actually run this process across 72 different layers of an image. So we run this sort of convolutional process. I'm not going to do 72 different slides, but on this slide, basically, this is the equivalent of 72 slides because what we look at are things like colour. We look at things like contrast, tint, all the things that you learn in photography school on your first day, all the things that designers know and live by, all of those things are analysed. But also more complicated things, depth of field, shadowing, movement. And you can also see some semantic elements are put in here. You can see here that this is seen to be a property that's semantic and contextual because you can see that it's friendly, it represents home, it's calm. And again, these are the algorithms that I talked about earlier. So not only are the algorithms able to look at what's in that image, they can infer a feeling, they can infer what's going on. And when you put all of this information together, you've actually got billions of data points around every single image. Because not only are we looking at everything that's in the image, we then start to compare everything to everything else. So if you think there's something like 10,000 combinations of a 4-digit lock, you can imagine how many permutations there are comparing every single element, every design feature to everything else in an image. And then what we also do is isolate that. So that gives us a chance to create an algorithmic score. Now, you guys are probably you guys are all way smarter than me. I'm not going to dig into too much detail here, but of course you guys all know that with computer vision, it doesn't look as we do. It doesn't see cats and dogs. It sees zeros and ones, and then it applies rules to those zeros and ones. So when we're creating an algorithmic score around content, we're actually building out that really rich data set that we can then analyze using deep learning algorithms. And that means that we can spot patterns in behavior that humans just cannot see, because we're able to look at an image, and where we would see a rug we don't like or some books that we like or don't like on a shelf, this is looking at points of data. And it's able then to look at that data and then compare that data to our performance database to make decisions around whether a particular piece of content is going to perform or not. So if we come back to our earlier two images, you can see they were so similar, but there are billions of points of data. So AI can spot and learn things that we can't. So I touched there on two things. I talked about how we turn an image into data. The next part, obviously, is machine learning and deep learning. We need something to compare to be able to make a decision. We have built the world's largest performance database. So in partnership with 8,000 brands all around the world, in every different industry, selling every different product. In fact, $6 billion worth of revenue has gone through the Facebook ads that we've analysed. We've also got a live feed into Facebook. So a lot of our data is coming from that Facebook world. We are building integrations into Google, TikTok, and Pinterest. And we're going to be able to have a performance database that means we will know exactly what's trending, what's getting engagement all around the world on every different digital channel. So for today, we can look at all the ads that are running on Facebook. We get live real-time feed from Facebook around what creative is performing for particular goals, territories, demographics, KPIs, etc., etc. So with that live feed in from Facebook, and with our tool breaking down images, if you bring these two things together, you can see really clearly how we can actually identify whether an image is going to work well before someone uses it, whether it's for a print ad, whether it's for packaging, whether it's for a social ad campaign. There's a million different reasons why you'd want to know why creative will work, and this is the tool that allows you to do it. And what's really interesting is that once you know exactly who you're targeting, not only can we help you understand which image will perform, we can also tell you why. So you can take those learnings, you can update your website, you can update your landing pages, you can update all the different various pieces of content that you have in market based on data. And lastly, it doesn't have to be Shutterstock data. So that's the point here. Because this is Shutterstock AI, we're a technical division within Shutterstock. We are reusing and reselling a lot of the applications that we developed for ourselves, as well as some proprietary tools that we're now bringing to market. This is a classic example of that. You can use this predictive technology on your content, should you wish, or you can use it on Shutterstock's content. So we've already got collections built, everything's scored. So if you want a Shutterstock content, we've got a UI you can plug into. But you can have access to these algorithms if you want to put them in a walled garden and look at your own content and your own data and not have anything to do with Shutterstock, but understand why your audience is engaged with your content, what it is about your content they like, and what they don't like. Because in actual fact, this tool is fantastic for telling you what works, but commercially, knowing what doesn't work in advance is an absolute game changer. So we worked with Virgin Retail in London. They ran this process for a year, running this tool. They saw a 35% improvement in their Facebook ads as far as engagement. They saw a 50% reduction in cost per click, and that was because they were able to test the ads before they run them and simply only run the ones that scored well. So really, all of this boils down to stopping us making mistakes. We're not replacing any sort of human creativity. We're not replacing the human in this. All we're doing is giving guardrails. It's spell check for designers, really. So data now is going to help make that decision. We've got some fantastic reports that have come out of this analysis. So from looking around the world, even if you don't want to use the technology, we've got some really intelligent data that you can get access to. We can give you this data for free. We've got trend reports on creative that work for different goals in different territories. We've got trend reports around colours. And of course, we can give you insights on how to use different bits of content for different purposes. And all of that can be available for free. And lastly, I think we've got 2 minutes now, so I'm just going to finish off by saying, obviously, we're out there if you want to come and talk to us. But I've got 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer questions if anybody has any. Hey, I should probably run around with a mic now. Ah, no, you're going to run around with the mic.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Xiaoheng. I'm a AI product leader at Wayfair. I also used to run a few marketing channels for Wayfair. I have two questions. One, this seems like a huge amount of labeling data. How do you get the labels? The second one is, how do you think about, it sounds like for different audiences or geos, you can target different preferences there. Have you guys thought about personalization? So like even the same person within the same, segment, I might prefer darker images than you.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that in 3 parts, really. First one, yes, huge resource for labelling, all proprietary content from Shutterstock. We partner with our friends over at Amazon as well. Obviously, we use some of the AWS tool sets for that. I'm glad I said that because my friend's up the back. So, yeah, but a lot of it's proprietary tools. And, of course, Shutterstock have recently acquired a number of AI companies as well. So we've acquired content, we've acquired these tool sets as well and folded them into the Shutterstock content. But from a customer's point of view, they don't need to worry about all of that. Even if you're uploading your own content, Shutterstock will put all the labels on it for you and check the accuracy for you and put the description on there for you. So that's the first part. The second part about personalization. Yeah, I'm particularly excited about personalization, particularly when we look at virtual and augmented content. If we start looking at synthetic and generative content, I think there's a really interesting play there. So not necessarily just looking at generative to create content in the first place, but to actually change it. Well, I love this image, but I think I'd rather have a cat than a dog, for example. Press a button. That can happen. And if you look at the predict technology, the technology exists that we could, in theory, generate images at scale that are completely novel for every individual person on the planet. Because if we've got access to the data, it stands to reason that we could learn what you like from everything that you've shared with us, and then we could create automatic ads. And I think that's something that I'm personally very excited about. I'm not necessarily saying that's what Shutterstock is doing, but building out technology that connects some of these applications, predictive technology, generative technology, personalization technology. I think there's definitely a future where we're going to see much more programmatic ads that feel very personal, even though they've been designed and built by a machine. Pleasure.
Hi.
We have one more question.
Yeah.
You have a mic? Great.
Yeah. Myself, Praful. I'm a master student at Northeastern University. So I had a question regarding this. You said that you take the feed from Facebook, marketing, and others, identify the trends, and then your new advertisement is now, does it well suit with the trends or better suited for the trends? Do you see that it becomes the new ad that is being flowed out is actually following the trend rather than creating trend?
Yeah.
Usually in ads, it's more like you want to stand out from the crowd. So how does it
Yeah, that's a great
how is
question. It's a great question. And it is obviously a real important thing we need to think about in artificial intelligence, right? Because our algorithms are all backward looking. That's something that we as an industry have to be very, very mindful of. Our past exists in those algorithms. I don't think everyone in this room wants to recreate the past, frankly. So what you have to do is think ahead. So in a number of different ways. And I learned this at Frazee when we were building out the artificial intelligence subject lines. It did happen that way. We did end up coalescing down and getting to a smaller set and end up having images and copy that was very similar. So you just have to build into that algorithm some kind of variance tool, some kind of randomness, some kind of variance, so that every now and again it chucks in something that's completely unexpected for testing purposes. And then you'll learn something new. And what that also means is you've got that variance coming in, so the models are not always looking backwards. The other element is, of course, if you are putting in data and you are looking at your performance data, every company will be different. I mean, even Banana Republic and Gap have completely different purchasing patterns, believe it or not, even though they've got a pretty similar audience, pretty similar clothing, different price point. So by looking at your specific data, your recommendations would be entirely different to someone in a shop right next door to you selling the same product. So in theory, you should all get very different recommendations. But to make sure that works, we've made the algorithms have a randomness factor in them.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
All right, Stefan.
Is
Thank you
that
very
us?
much.
Okay, right.
We're out of time.
Okay.
Appreciate you for a very great talk, and
Thank you.
please connect with more people. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.